Rosenwald. I'm Daniel Levine.
And I'm Clarke Jackson, and we did, our experiment is You Must Obey, Snack Time, Social Morality, and the Moral Code of Lower School Students. Our abstract, essentially what we did overall, young kids today are extremely obedient and take the word of an older authority figure. In our experiment, we test if this statement is true. We isolated children and showed them either one of two videos. We then went on to ask them questions on these videos to test their level of obedience. There are many studies on obedience today, but none seem to grasp the right age group that we wanted to test. How would an American child obey when put under stress of an older authority figure?
Our hallmark study, we did Stanley Milgram, and I know most of you are familiar with this study, but we wanted to give you a more descriptive view so we can explain why we chose our study. And so in 1963, he tested obedience on authority, and in issuing his test, he sat down participants from a newspaper ad that were supposed to take a test on learning, but the real test was testing obedience, because whenever the teacher would, whenever the learner would get a question wrong, the teacher would have to administer a shock to the learner. The learner was actually a Confederate in the experiment, but the teacher didn't know that. And so as the learner kept getting the questions wrong, the teacher would keep administering higher levels of shock. And so this test was implemented because at the time of World War II and the Nazis, Milgram was interested to see why the Nazis would issue such hateful crimes against the Jewish people and others as well. And so we wanted to use Milgram's study to see if people really do obey to authoritative figures.
And our lit review was an experiment by Jerry and Berger in 2009. He made an experiment essentially doing the same thing as Stanley Milgram, but a much more ethical version. He had a teacher and a learner, but instead of using a real person as a learner, he used a simulation, like a sim character, in which whenever the teacher would administer an electric shock, it would be a person on a screen suffering. So, and also another change in his experiment from Stanley Milgram's is that he only went up to 75 voltage level of electric shock. And when the teacher went all the way up to 75 and chose to administer the 75 voltage, the experiment was over, to essentially keep more in the ethical realm of experimentation. And in all, the experiment did put significant stress on the people, like as he tried to. And overall, it showed that people would completely obey an authoritative figure.
Okay, so for our next study, we took Douglas Navrick's study that he implemented in 2009, and so it was not as harmful of an approach as Stanley Milgram's, because he didn't feel it was necessary to implement unethical testing. And so what he did was he took his 100 psychology students, and he put them in a solitary confined room. It was all dark except for a screen, and there were two discs next to it. And so in order to watch the video, which was 15 minutes of a cartoon video that they selected, they would have to press a sequence of left, right, left, right, left, right. And so basically his test was just to see how long it would take for his psychology students to quit and leave the test, because they could leave at any time because there was this bell that they could ring and stop the experiment. But what ended up happening was that he went through the entire experiment and only found that 20% of his students quit. And it's important to note that they were also psychology students who were familiar with Milgram's study, and so we really just we wanted to use this study ultimately because it shows that even psychology students follow ridiculous requests by authoritative figures just because they're given by these commanding officers.
Okay, V. Lee Hamilton did an experiment in 1978 where adult subjects independently viewed a video of a military case and gave their verdicts to the experimenter. The experimenters found that manipulating the rank of the defendant's superior officer in the video would change how much perceived responsibility there was on by the participants in the experiment. And he found that if the defendant had a higher ranked superior officer, they perceived that the defendant would have less responsibility, and vice versa. This just shows that how much perceived responsibility an authority figure has, and even in making a decision on a verdict in a case, in military case of law.
So in this experiment, it was done by Marnie Young and John Paul Shepard. It was done in 2007, where they took a huge group of graduate business students, and they examined how the students would route themselves through the process of different areas of cognitive moral development. They were given a list of 12 conflicting issues where there was a social conflict, and they would rank them in importance to corresponding dilemma. They would rank the 4 most important ones to them, and what they at that point thought was the most morally conflicting. Half the test was done in 1 week, and half was done 3 weeks later. And in between, half the group, the experimental group, was shown Milgram's experiment, was shown the videos that they used during Milgram's experiment. And the stimulus would hopefully take them and get them out of autonomous development. So viewing this experiment, it was very interesting because they took it changed their whole perception of different parts of moral development, and they actually ranked the more morally conflicting issues higher on the list than they did previously. Then, even more interestingly, females showed a greater consistent, significant positive response to viewing Milgram's experiment, while males didn't really change their ideas, kind of more stubborn from before the experiment. This study by Lars Erik Peterson and Jörg Dietz was done in 2008, and it's very different from any other study that we've done before that we've shown. They took an authority figure, but instead of showing it in the room with them, it was over a letter and through an organization. So what they did is they sent letters to tons and tons of willing participants from an organization, a false organization, and these letters had within them kind of an authority. Because when a person sees this letter, they see it's from an important organization where they really didn't see as a person. And this authority would say that if they sent back a letter from this huge, tedious form they had to fill out, just like the tedious task in the Maverick study, they would get money back from this organization, this authority figure. After completing this huge form, this survey, and getting the money, they got a response which was very, very strange. the conclusion came that multiple connections that derive from the effective organizational authority, they got huge responses back, where they got this strange issue that just seeing a letter instead of a video, there was a huge thought of authority. Like in our experiment where we use a video instead of a letter, and we hopefully would get the same response. Now, this experience is very important to our study. This study was M.E. Shanab and K. Yahya. It was done in 1977 on 192 Jordanian children. Now, in Jordan at this time, they didn't have the same ethics laws where they could perform the same exact Milgram experiment on these children, excuse me, and be okay. So what they did is they did the same exact Milgram experiment on these children, which is a little strange, but they did it anyway. They put them in 2 by 2 by 3 foot boxes, and they did the same experiment. They had a teacher and a learner, and the two kind of punishments were instructed. They had the shocks, and they did different levels of age group, and they tested to see whether males, females in different age groups would respond the same in the Milgram experiment. The control group was given free choice of delivering the shocks or not, but the experimental group was told that they had to give the shocks or not. 73% opposed to the 2/3 that Milgram got. 73% experimental participants went the whole way and delivered the shocks all the way, as opposed to 16% of the control participants that got free will didn't go the whole way and had the CMD, the cognitive moral development, to not go the whole way and shock until their person was deceased. After going through the whole shocks, they found that the age difference of obedience rates were found that the older they were, the less amount of shocks they would go the whole way, and that in the gender distribution, the females were less obedient than the males, opposed to what happened in the letter study with the Dietz study. For our methodology, we had a certain population.
Our population was the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade in McDonough School, which is 197 lower school children. We chose Ms. Hailstone's class, Mr. Bay's class, and Mr. Webb's class. They were the teachers that allowed us to participate, to have their children participate. And we chose 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grades because we believe that the most cognitive change happens around this time, as we've learned from Piaget, that there's a lot of change from 2nd grader to a 4th grader, morally and cognitively, as we learned from, as I said, Piaget and Kohlberg. Yes, and we chose them randomly.
So since we only had we had a limited amount of children to work with because we only had 3 classes in the whole time, we took these kids and took the kids' names, put them into a container from these 3 classes, and we picked them randomly. We took 4 boys and 4 girls from each class, so that we could have a perfect distribution between boys and girls and the age group. So we had 4 boys and 4 girls from 2nd grade, 4 boys, 4 girls from 3rd grade, and 4 boys, 4 girls from 4th grade. We did this because we didn't want any biases. There would be a possible bias if one of us knew the kid, so we tried to take out every person that we knew. And we wanted a fair distribution because with this selection, we would have the thoughts and views from all children in those classes and those grades. And that's what we were trying to obtain, because we didn't want any biases and any certain thing that could get in our way from getting the skewed results. We didn't want that.
So in our experiment, we gave an introduction or an introductory video to all the kids separately in their individual rooms, and it showed a high schooler and a kid playing a game, and so then the high schooler would say that he has to leave, but he wants the kid to watch his snack. So what we did was we implemented 2 conditions. We had video A and video B, and so in video A, once the high schooler would leave and ask the kid to watch his snack, the kid would, another high schooler would come in and say he's hungry, and that he is going to take the snack. So as he takes the snack, in video A, the kid says, "No, you can't do that." And so in that case, he's not obeying the new authoritative figure. In video B, the kid says, "Okay, yes, you can take the snack." And so in that instance, he is obeying the authoritative figure. And so our dependent variable, and ultimately what we wanted to find out, was when we showed the kids, half the kids video A and half the kids video B, whether or not they would agree with what the kid did, and ultimately whether they would obey the high schooler like the kid did or did not do in the video.
Our hypothesis was that some kids would would hypothetically obey, and some would not obey the high schooler's request. That's what we thought, and we believe that when the kids did differ, and the kids did not obey, that it would be older kids, just because they would be more advanced in their cognitive development and moral development, that they would be less likely to conform. We also used consent forms to make sure that our experiment was as ethical as possible. In it, we sent them to the teachers and the parents, and we made sure that we explained our experiment very thoroughly, and that we introduced ourselves so that they would be more comfortable allowing their children to participate. And do the videos.
Okay, so this was our intro video that we showed all the kids, and we would like to show you just what it was.
What's 3 times 7?
21.
What's 3 times 9?
27.
I have to go to the bathroom. Don't let anyone touch my snacks.
Okay.
Okay, so this was the first video that we showed every single one of the kids, and we made sure that the kid in the video was the average of the 3 grades. He was in 3rd grade, just so the student would feel more comfortable, but would also, more importantly, be able to put themselves in the situation of distress. And we also made sure it was a lower school classroom as well. And so for the 2 conditions, we showed, this was video A, and this was the student not obeying.
I'm hungry. I'm gonna take these snacks.
No, you can't put them back.
So we showed that video to half the students.
Go.
And we showed video B to the other half.
I'm hungry. I'm gonna take these snacks.
Okay.
And in order to make the videos as accurate as possible, we made sure to use the same lines and to have the same exact, as close to the same exact scenarios as possible, with the only thing differing was the kid's response.
So our experiment was performed between the times of 3 o'clock to 3:30 over the course of 2 days. We took the child out during their activities period, which is at the end of the day, school day. So we did it during the same time of day, hopefully not get different responses. We had the child sit in the quiet hallway with one of us who wasn't in the video, which is Clarke, and they each watched the introduction video and then either watched A or B, not both. So they would be either put to the control group or the experimental group. Clarke then proceeded to ask them a series of 2 post-preliminary questions, which was what happened in the videos and what would you have done if you were the child in that position. The first question was used so that we knew the child understood what they were being asked, and what if they saw that they needed to rewatch the video, and if they understood what was going on. The second question was the real experiment, which was what would they have done if they were put in the same place as that child in the same video, and if they would do the same thing that the child would do in the video they were shown.
And so the results we found were that 11 out of the 12 students who were given video A would agree with the boy in the video and not give the guy a snack. So we found those results to be very surprising when compared to our hypothesis and the studies that we found, because we would think that the kids would obey to authoritative figure, but in our results we obviously found that that wasn't the case. And in video B, likewise, 0 students would agree with the boy in the video and to give the guy a snack. This is the breakdown of the second graders, and we could see that this was the one person out of 24 that would actually obey to the authoritative figure. And we didn't find this to be surprising, because basically what Clarke said about Piaget's theories of child development, that either they didn't fully understand what was going on in the video, or they simply wouldn't, they would just obey because they were younger. And we can see in just in video B, all the students disagreed. In 3rd grade and 4th grade, so 3rd and 4th, we can see that no one would give the snack to the new high schooler, and just that no one would obey to an authoritative figure. And this is just the breakdown of grades for the people who would agree with the student and not steal the snack. And from what we were shown with the one person, it would have been 33.3% of the people, which is evenly distributed between the grades, but that one second grader. And so this is from video B, and we saw that since everyone said they wouldn't obey, we can just see that it's very evenly split between all the grades.
Obviously, in any experiment, you come into a few confounds, and our confounds were minimal, but they definitely affected, skewed our results. One, we thought our sample sizes were too small. If we, it's just 24 students, we didn't have enough time, and there wasn't enough really children to really get the whole population of every 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grader in the country, or what we wanted. The children weren't really put in distress as we really needed to for an obedience experiment. We just showed them a video, and the children really didn't get in the body of the 3rd grader that we showed in the video, and they kind of just saw the kid as a third-party subject, and just saw it more as a morality instead of an obedience test. Also, it's just kind of minuscule. The test was issued on different days. It was over a course of 2 days. It was done at the same time of day, but that could affect it because the kid could have gone over to other children and said what they had to say, or what they could have told them what the experiment was about, and they could have thought about it overnight. It was just there could have been a ton of different time issues, and the size was just not right. From our results, we see that the discussion that we found that kids from our school and the age group that we're looking at had much more of a black and white sense of morality than we once thought. We come from a school where every day morality, what is good, what is bad, is ingrained in our heads from kindergarten to 12th grade, and we just saw that those kids really displayed it, that they knew what was right and what was wrong, and they didn't really obey a false authority figure.
And I guess another thing was we didn't necessarily know if the test that was implemented by us was pressuring the students enough and was causing the distress that we saw from Milgram's experiment and from the other studies, because they themselves were not being forced to choose whether they would get the snack or not, but they were really just watching the video of someone doing that. So we weren't really sure if it was they're answering based on what they knew was right and wrong, or whether they actually would obey or not.
Yeah, exactly. We thought that the whole experiment, we originally were trying to test obedience, but I believe that it was more about morality for them. Again, they felt like a third party figure, and they were looking at the whole situation, and they were looking at the morality of it instead of feeling that they had to have the pressure to obey. So yes, maybe in future research, we might try to do an experiment in which the kids were actually in the situation that we portrayed in the videos, where they would be sitting down and be playing games with a high schooler. The high schooler would leave the room, and then another high schooler would come in and would try to take a snack and see what the kid would do. So that would probably put a lot more pressure on the kid and test their obedience.
Also, we would want to get a larger range of gender and age. We would try to see if we could get from kids kindergarten to 4th grade and see how their development and their moral development and their cognitive development would change from the age difference. We'd also want to get it from outside of our school and see if different places and different areas of students would change their idea of obedience. Mm-hmm. Also, would be want to see if we can do gender breakdowns and see if if the difference between male and females is a lot of other obedience studies did the same with male and female. We didn't really get to have the size population to do that, but in future research would like to do that.
Thank you. We really appreciate your attention, and I hope you enjoyed the goodies that we've given to you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening, and I know it's not really your choice to be here today, but I really appreciate you sitting through this and letting us show you our research.
Would you obey at any cost?